Just to confirm, we are live. It's 10:30. It's Thursday. That means it's time for a BoPs show and tell. Welcome. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the fourth show and tell of this phase of product development for BoPs, the new back office planning system for local planning authorities. This tool will be used by planners to process planning applications. So welcome back to our new BoPs YouTube channel. Please do subscribe down below and we'll keep you updated on the new content that we put up there. As ever, this show and tell is being recorded and will be available on this channel in due course alongside all our other previous show and tells. My name is Tom Buttrick from Southwark Council and we're here today to show you what we've been working on with our partner boroughs, hi guys, and our delivery partner Unboxed. Next slide, please. So for those who somehow have arrived at this show and tell and don't know what BoPs is, BoPs is a new software application that we are building. It's been designed by and for local planning authorities. And BoPs processes planning applications in a more efficient and intuitive way so that decisions can be made quicker by planning managers to grant permission, and hopefully it will use less resources, which means ultimately the applicants, the people who want to build new extensions to their homes, to change the use of buildings, can get decisions quicker and get on with it. So our users are planning officers who process the applications and the planning managers who review and issue the decision notices. So if you are a planner or a planning manager, and we're building BoPs for you, and we are testing features as we build them every week. And if you'd like to help testing or just want to get in touch, please do so. And our contact details will be at the end of the show and tell. Next slide, please. So we're over halfway now through this phase of development. Yeah, we've got the three primary work streams: the lawful development certificate, minimal viable product that we're building. We've been working on householder planning applications, and what that means is actually functionality for the householder application process, but that can also be used for lawful development certificates as well. And we've also got our wider program of work, and that is all about our social media and things like that, and we're progressing with that. Next slide, please. So if you have any questions about what we're going to show you today, and we are super excited about what we're going to show you, there's a link in the description below to a rebranding link, which is for the BoPs questions. Pop your question in there, and we will answer it at the end of the show and tell. So yeah, anything that you want to ask about the product, pop that in there. So thank you. Next slide, please. What have we been up to this sprint? So if we can jump onto the next slide. We have primarily been continuing with change requests. Now, for those of you who've watched the previous show and tells, change requests are when the case officer is looking at an application and they're like, something's not right here. It might be invalid. The plans might be incorrect. It might have a scale bar. The description of the development's incorrect. Or something else. So we need to go back to the applicant to get a change, a new plan, etc. And that's been the primary focus of this theme. But also we've been working towards the beta testing of the LDC, and we're going to be launching that in the very near future. The primary change request we've looked at this sprint is the red line editing tool, and as we all know, the red line is the application site. It's the location where the proposed development will take place, and sometimes it can be incorrect when it's submitted. So this is our new feature that we'll demo this morning to show how we can do that. And just to kind of add a bit of info there, this is the red line that's submitted through our sister project, the Reducing Invalid Planning Application Tools, where the applicant draws the red line in that tool, and then that polygon gets sent to us, the case officer in BoPs, and then we review it, and this is what we'll be showing. We've also been doing lots of end-to-end testing in this sprint with colleagues across our partners. We've been implementing some improvements to the MVP prior to going live. We've had a BoPs board meeting. We've been working on the user guide for the launch, and we've been, again, in Southwark here, working on Power BI and GovPay. So next slide, please. I'm going to hand over to Tom, who will go through some of the feedback from the user testing. Over to you, Tom.
Thank you very much. Hello, I'm Tom Gaylor. I'm a designer and user researcher with Unboxed, who's working on the BoPs project. So if you were at the last show and tell, you will have heard me talk about the testing we've been undertaking across our partner councils. And in last show and tell, I showed some initial work that had been done around the synthesis of those outcomes. Since then, we've been working closely with our product owners and the design team to sort of prioritize changes and fixes that we can be made in response to the user testing. So it's really exciting to see that direct feedback, the products being improved directly by interaction with the officers in sort of a live and ongoing way, which is really interesting and exciting. So some work that we've done already, I'll talk about, and then we've got further work that's coming up in the future over the next couple of sprints or so. And so what I'm going to show you in a sec is a series of different design improvements that have been made in response to testing, some of which we've even got developed and some of which will be developed shortly as well. So next slide, please. So Tom had given you a sort of quick introduction to change requests. So once a change request is made, the list of the change requests that have been asked for are shown to the planning officer. And one of the key things around these change requests is the date that it was sent. So when that request was made by the officer, and we've now added the function that this can be captured and presented to the officer, and also the date that it's responded. So when the applicant uploads the new document that's been asked for or has approved the change to the description, we now capture that date and present it. And so it's very clear, because there's a time sensitivity around request for change. You can see the countdown, but you can also see those hard dates when action was changed. So if we could have the next slide, please. This represents sort of a really great example of how testing with users has informed and improved the product. When a constraint is shown about an application, we will, a constraint might be identified by Ripper, and this will be sent through to us. However, if no constraint is shown, currently or previously, the application just had a blank space, and some planning officers were saying this was slightly confusing. They weren't quite sure what this meant. Did it, so we followed best practice and we're showing an evidence of absence, so that no constraints have been identified by Ripper means that the system has not identified some. However, there is the possibility for officers to add constraints manually as things might have been missed or not currently in the system. So this provides that ability to make sure that all constraints that are relevant can be added to the application. If we could have the next slide, please. So this represents a piece of design work that's been designed and hopefully will come into development shortly. Previously, or currently in the BoPs system, once the officer has made their assessment, before they submit it to their manager, they're able to see a preview of the decision notice. However, once they've submitted it to their manager, currently we don't allow them to go and see that decision notice again. And a couple of officers said it'd be really useful to be able to refer back to that decision notice just to get the full picture of what I've sent to my manager. And so now, under the review section, once it's with their manager for review, they are still able, they can't edit, but they can view that decision notice for reference as they might need, and as sort of was uncovered in the user testing. So next slide, please. Another point was around when officers came to assessment. Previously, the system had quite a small text box, and officers felt this wasn't really supporting them to get the full detail that they would want to give, or that would be necessary to properly conduct or to carry out their responsibilities. And so we've made the text box a bit bigger, and this just supports and encourages them to write a more appropriate length of response to the assessment questions. Next slide, please. And something else that was uncovered was around documents. So documents, such as they might be plans that are received, they can be archived so that when they're received with an application, they go into a live list of documents, and that contains all the documents with that application. If for some reason there's been a duplicate uploaded or some other reason, a document might be archived, and this means it's removed from the list of live documents that are relevant for that application. So again, this is design work. We'll hopefully get into development soon, but we needed a way for this process to be reversed. So if you could put them into archive, you needed to be taking them out if things had changed, or there maybe was a user error or something else that had caused them to be there. So this just supports that ability for the officer to take something out of the archive and put it back into the live list. And next slide, please. And finally, for design work, as we've been designing, we've been making use of tags across different aspects of the design. So you would have seen some just with the documents there. We were aware that as this work had gone on, there hadn't necessarily been like a joined up approach to how they'd been used. So we took this opportunity to audit and rationalize the use of color and text across the tags used on the application, just to make sure that for the officers, it was clear what was communicated by the use of different colors and different words across all the different parts of the application. So this design works feeding into sort of improvements across the system and into future work as well. So that covers all the sort of design and research, and I'm going to hand over to Melissa, who will take you through the development stuff.
Thanks, Tom. So for the past 2 weeks, the past sprints, we have been focusing on one large piece of work and then other smaller improvements to the app. The larger piece of work was around redline change requests. It was delivered and led by our other 2 developers, James and Rianne. And essentially what this allows you to do, it lets a planning officer correct a red line boundary, create a new drawing, and then send the request to an applicant to change that drawing, to approve or deny that drawing. And maybe this is a mouthful, so I will show you this in practice in a second. This has involved not only changing our BoPs application and supporting the ability to create that change request in BoPs, it also has implied for us to open up our API so that other applications can then call the API to then mend and patch that change request. And then, of course, we will display this on our new application, BoPs applicants, so that a person that is handling the application from an applicant point of view can then respond to this. And again, I'll show you this all live, so it'll make a lot more sense in a second. As for the smaller improvements that we've been working on, these have implied correcting the timeline that we had in our audits from GMT to British Summer Time to London time. So now that will all show correctly. We have also added the ability to audit whenever constraints are added and removed to the application. And we have made other small changes to the visuals. Some of them have already been mentioned by Tom that have come from design research. And I'll proceed to show you this without further ado. So let's put on our planning officer hats, and we're going to assess a planning application. To create a change request, we'll always need to make sure that the application is invalid. And now we can go and start a new request. So we have assessed that there is an incorrect red line boundary in this application. And I'll show you the red line boundary for context. This is what it is, the site map. Now, when we create a request for a red line boundary change, we get shown the previous red line boundary, and we're going to draw a new one. So now the planning officer is happy with the new red line boundary, and I'm just going to say it needs to reach the road and send it. You get a confirmation at the top to see that the change request was successfully sent, and you can see what you have sent to the user. There you go. Okay, so now if we go back to view our pending requests, we know that the applicant has received an email for this, and I am also the applicant in this, so I'm going to check my inbox. And here it is. I've been requested to make a change to my application, and I can see that there's a red line boundary request in there. I can see the previous one and I can see the new one. Now I am going to agree with this request and submit it. And you can see that the change request was successfully updated. It's changed to complete. Now I'm going to put on my planning officer hat again and have a look at what has happened here. So the change request has been approved by the applicant. And this means that within the application, now our new sitemap includes the amended change request as well. So this was a bigger feature that we had been working on for the past 2 weeks. Now, on the smaller changes, you can see that here on the constraints, we have added this text for when something is empty. We are going to add and remove a couple of constraints. Now, when we update these, we can check the audit activity log. And you can see that every constraint has been added and removed, and we are showing the correct timestamp for it. So these have been a few of the main changes that have happened. Are there any other features you'd like me to outline, Tom? Okay, all good. So let's go back to our show and tell, and I'm going to hand over to Tom again.
Thank you, Melissa. It's really great to see that red line plan functionality, and that's hot off the press. We are going to be doing further testing with that with users, and we will iterate on that on that functionality to ensure it becomes even better. But again, it's using that change request functionality, which is built into BoPs. Is a really powerful tool to kind of really engage with the applicant in a different and a new way. So thank you to the dev team for that. As I've touched on already in the show and tell, we are moving towards the private beta testing of the lawful development certificate using BoPs and Ripper. And we are, sorry, 1 second, phone call, just get rid of that. So we are moving towards lawful development certificate testing, and we've been doing lots of end-to-end testing by planners and managers from our partner councils. And from that user testing, as Tom has shown, we've got some really good feedback, and we will be finessing the MVP over the next number of weeks prior to going live to test real live, obviously, lawful development certificate applications. And we're really excited to be heading towards that direction. We have been preparing the user guide for planning officers to support the MVP, and that's an iterative process, and we'll be continuing with that. And also, as we know, to process live applications through Ripper and then BoPs, we need to take a payment from the applicant, and we've got GovPay set up, and we're testing the processes there to ensure that the money that's received can be then allocated accordingly. And finally, we are working with MHLG to prepare a comms plan to announce the launch of the MVP, and we look forward to doing that. Next slide, please. We also had the second BoPs board meeting between partners and MHLG. We discussed project management and different ways of working. We're looking at development options for the product, moving forward to our next funding bid, which will be in July. And we're really keen to kind of look at what's the most important pieces of functionality that we need to progress in that next phase of development. And so we'll be able to update you on that in due course. And again, we have a product BoPs which works very closely with our sister project Ripper. As Tom and Rianne has sort of shown you today, we're getting data from Ripper. We're working very closely, and so we're looking at how we align those both projects to give the best service to our applicants. Next slide, please. So what's next? As we've touched on, we're moving towards launching the MVP. We're going to be adding evidence tags to documentation that's been submitted to support lawful development certificate applications. We're going to be looking further iterations on the red line plan. sort of change request tool. We'll be looking at how we present the fee information from Ripper in BoPs, further end-to-end testing, and the preparations for the go live. So the next few weeks are going to be really busy. We're super excited again to get involved in these final preparations for going live, and we'll update you at the next show and tell on how that's going. So yeah, next slide, please. If you, as I touched on at the beginning, if you'd like a demo of BoPs or you want to get involved in the testing, we'd really welcome to speak to new councils. So do get in touch with myself and Peter, my colleague, who's also a product owner here at Southwark, and we'll arrange that with you. Next slide, please. So thank you. Thank you for your time this morning. We're going to jump over to Athena now to see if there are any questions on the Slido deck. Athena, over to you.
Thanks, Tom. Yes, we do. We have a couple of questions and comments. So Chris from Southwark, he said that he was testing the other day and it showed that the base map in Ripper and BoPs were different, and the polygon that we drew in Ripper didn't align with the building on the maps in BoPs. Another one from Chris is, he says, instead of drawing a polygon, can we copy the features from the BLPU provenance layer or features from the base map? Because manual plotting is very inaccurate.
Yeah, let's start. There's two interlinked questions there, and they're really good questions. So thank you, Chris, for those. We recognise that there is a discrepancy between the two different map layers, and we are going to be working to fix that when we consolidate which base maps we're using. At this stage, we were very much this is the first iteration of this, so it's just showing that we can do it. And we will iterate from this point forward to fix that base map issue when the polygon comes through Ripper into BoPs. And there's questions around licensing and which map we ultimately use. But you're right, there has to be a consistency, and we'll be delivering that. And then jumping onto your second point there, which is around how can we use is there a smarter way of drawing that polygon? And at the moment, as Rianne kindly demoed there, it's the user draws it. Rianne, when Rianne demoed it, you can zoom in closer to actually get a lot more zoomed in look, so you can draw a more accurate polygon. But we recognise that if we could, for example, just click on the existing polygon in the base map, that would be a really good starting point, which then maybe the officer could then tweak if they needed to take it to a slightly wider, or etc. So we will be looking at that in the future iterations of the Redline tool. But they're really good suggestions and issues that you've identified, and we'll be working on that. Athena, was there anything else there?
Yes. We have another question. You have withdrawn, and do you have the tags withdrawn and returned? So you have, sorry, let me start again. You have withdrawn and returned status tags. Will you include finally disposed of, or can users add new tags?
So we can, sort of speaking for the dev team, we can add new tags, and obviously we'll work down through the through what tags we need. In the main BoPs applications screen, you can track what status applications are in, and there's the applications aren't started, there's the ones which are in progress, and there's the ones where the recommendation has been made by the case officer, and then it goes to the manager to sign off. So my reading of finally disposed of is the application is closed. The application has been, a decision notice has been sent. So we have that within the main screen to confirm all the applications that have been or a decision has been issued. So Tom, I think we can further look at how we use tags for that part of the process. Any comments on that?
Yeah, I think this is obviously this is something maybe more relevant as cases build up over time. So it hasn't been a priority for the MVP, which is obviously not going to start with few applications in historically, but it's something we're aware of. as for users adding their own tags, that's not currently something we're supporting. We could look at it. So I'm happy if people want to contact me we can have a discussion around that. But yeah, we're going to iterate towards greater functionality, and particularly looking at the life cycle of this and how over time, as we deal with more and more, we can process that so we don't just build up lists. That is something we're very conscious of, but hasn't been prioritized as of yet, but will become more important as time moves on.
Yeah, and just to kind of, I think that's good, Tom. And I think what we don't want is 1,000 different tags that have been created individually by users, when we'll need to report against ultimately these tags at some stage. And so we need a consistency. But yeah, we're always welcome to hear suggestions and ideas of how we can make BoPs more effective and usable for the case officer, to give them the information that they need as quickly as possible. Athena, was there any other questions there?
Yeah, the person who spoke about the tags has just updated and said that finally disposed of has decided not to determine it after a certain amount of time, not the same as withdrawn, perhaps something to look into.
That's thank you for the clarification there. Internet commentator, really appreciate that. Yeah, we'll need to look at that as well, because obviously there's those the applications that basically just sit there and then ultimately we get rid of. So we need to decide how we do that, and that will be in the backlog to develop further functionality. But thank you for your response for that. Thank you.
We also have one more comment question. So this person said that the validation request system looks really good, and can we see the options again? Would you have options including removing, redactions, open publication?
Yes, just firstly, in terms of the latter part of the question there. So obviously, if evidence is submitted to the council for a lawful development certificate that actually contains personal data, we need to ensure that we do not publish it or it's redacted. We are working on that. The first kind of point of how we address that is, when the case officer is going through the documentation that's been submitted, be it plans or evidence, they can just determine which document goes on the decision notice. So that's the first point. So we don't include, for example, any information that's to be on the decision notice. But secondly, we are going to develop functionality where a document is either ticked so it doesn't go public on the planning register, or it's redacted. We don't have a redaction tool yet in BoPs, but so it will be an offline tool. But we'll look at that to see how we can take that forward. But it's recognized that we need to be very careful with evidence that's submitted where there is personal information, and it's been very much flagged as an important piece of functionality to develop. So thank you there. In terms of and thank you, Melissa. In terms of the change requests, on the screen now is the list of change requests that we've developed. And one of the things that we're working with is some change requests it's a change request because the application is invalid. For example, a plan may not have a scale bar, etc. And some change requests may come out of negotiation, like actually there's a new version of a plan following negotiation. So we are looking at how we look at change requests for invalid reasons, or actually just reasons that are just the life cycle of the application. So we'll be looking at that moving forward. The 4 on the screen there at the moment, the description change, the replacement documents, i.e. new plans, a new document because a plan's missing, red line, that's what we've worked on. We have a list of other change requests that we're working through. We welcome your feedback to think about what change requests should we look at next. But the really great thing about BoPs is that the functionality, the interface between telling the applicant they need to do something and then receiving some information back can be applicable to lots of different scenarios, and we can use this core functionality now to further develop the tool to deliver different types of change requests. And that's a testament to the dev team and the work there. So thank you to the dev team and the design team. So yeah, that's where we're at with change requests. And again, we'll be iterating and adding new features there. Athena, was that the last of the questions?
That was the last question, but we have one comment that says, "Great show and tell, guys," and we're looking really excited and such an improvement on the current systems. So positive feedback there.
Thank you. That's great, Athena. Should we just jump back to the presentation, Melissa? Thank you. Yeah, that's the end of the show and tell today. We really thank you for your time. We really value your eyes on this. If you have any comments, do get in touch with ourselves and partners, with Tom, with me or Pete. We welcome feedback. The feedback we get from you makes the product better. Planners make this product better because you'll be using it, and at some stage, hopefully, or you will be, and we can make it better for you. So yeah, do get in touch. The next show and tell was the 24th of June, 2 weeks today, 10:30. And hopefully we'll be able to see you then. So thank you very much, and thank you.